Adversity. It has the power to undermine your self-esteem, cast fear into your heart, throw you into a world of anxiety and confusion, and no one can escape it. Today I'm going to share with you my story of triumph in the face of adversity and the power of harnessing that experience to create a whole new level of self-awareness and self-love. Adversity comes in many forms. It can come in the form of a cancer diagnosis, a disability, a sick child, being made redundant, divorce, a family breakup, or it can be as simple as the fear of missing a deadline. For me, as a teenager, adversity came in the form of an eating disorder. I was just like any 12-year-old girl, except my fashion sense is highly questionable. I loved riding my bike down the street. I fought with my sisters. I was fascinated about boys, and I couldn't wait to turn that magical 13, where I would finally become a teenager. But by my 13th birthday, things had begun to change. The year before that, I started at a private girls' school in Year 6. I had the most amazing year. I did netball, softball, volleyball, athletics, debating. I was in the top 10% of the year academically. The year that I turned 13, I went into Year 7 at this same school, and there was a huge influx of students. And I went from being in the top 30%, in the top 10% to being in the top 30%. Which for a high achiever and a perfectionist was absolutely devastating. It didn't matter how many nights or weekends I was buried under textbooks in my bedroom, studying my heart out. It didn't matter how hard I worked. I just couldn't break through that top 30%. And I started to feel worthless. I started to feel that nothing I did was good enough. I started to feel like a failure. And my internal dialogue became negative and self-destructive. I started experimenting with the latest fad diets because that felt like something I could control. And it's a fact that going on a diet and having a low self-esteem is what leads to an eating disorder. And my self-esteem was at an all-time low. I became obsessed with counting calories. I became obsessed with exercise. At night in my bedroom with the door closed, I'd do hundreds of sit-ups until my body was exhausted. I started creating excuses to avoid situations where there was food. I lied to my mum. I told her that I ate at my friend's place, so I didn't have to sit down at the family dinner table. I became exhilarated as the weight started to fall off, and I became obsessed with watching the number on the scale go down. And on the inside, I felt anxious. And suddenly I became afraid because my thoughts became so dark and so destructive that suddenly I was out of control. So I thought, I'll put this right, I'll just eat something. And I went to eat something, and I found that I couldn't. The anorexic mindset had already taken hold, and I was powerless to control it. And by the age of 15, I was consumed with anorexia. I slipped into a black hole of fear and anxiety and depression and loneliness. The saddest day was in Year 11, when I had to leave school because I was too sick to continue. And I remember standing at the school gates for the last time, looking at the faces of my 3 best friends, and they were all crying. And I was crying too. And as I stepped out of those school gates for the last time, there I was at the age of 16, with no school, no plans, future. And over the months that followed, I slipped further into the black hole. I watched my friends' lives moving on without me. They were dating and going to parties. They were making plans for university. And all I had was this lonely, miserable existence. At Christmas that year, I went to a church to attend a Christmas pageant. And I was sitting outside in this beautiful garden feeling lost and alone. And suddenly the church doors flew open and a bride and groom emerged under a shower of confetti. And she was wearing a beautiful white gown and he was gazing at her adoringly. And I watched them float past in this blissful happiness. And I felt an ache inside. And I realised, that's one of my dreams. And in that moment, I realised how much anorexia had taken from me. It snatched my dreams. It ruined my relationships. It ruined my future. And I was filled with this ironclad resolve, this determination that I was going to fight it and I was going to win. I was going to get my life back. And from that moment on, I worked really hard at my recovery. It was a difficult process. I had to learn how to eat again. I had to learn how to trust myself again. I had to learn how to love myself for exactly who I am from the inside out. I had to mend relationships. I worked really hard at my recovery, and by the age of 17, I was doing really well. My counsellor helped me peel back the emotional layers to get underneath what was motivating the behaviour. She helped me work through those feelings of helplessness and failure. She helped me find the inner strength to keep going, to keep moving forward. She helped me alleviate that fear, that crippling fear of the unknown. And I found this strength inside that I didn't know I had. And the joyous thing for me was that I could start to imagine the life that I wanted for myself. I could start to create goals and have dreams again. And I worked so hard, I was so determined that I was going to beat my eating disorder and I was going to get my life back. And by the time I was 20, I had recovered. And I was filled with this urgent need to live, to really embrace life, to make up for all of those years that I lost. And rather than look back with regret or sadness, I chose to use that adversity to unearth my capability. I chose to turn that experience into something positive through sharing my experience and reaching out to help other people so that they didn't have to go through what I went through. I've written 4 books about eating disorders and issues affecting young people. I've spoken at numerous conferences and forums and in the media to raise awareness of the dangers of dieting and the devastating effects of eating disorders. And through this process, I've interviewed hundreds of young people who've been through some type of adversity and come through the other side. And my experience of adversity as a teenager, coupled with the experiences of the young people that I've interviewed, I've gained some amazing insights into how to turn adversity into opportunity. And I'd like to share some of those with you now. New York Times bestselling author and CNN host Sonia Friedman famously said, "The way you treat yourself sets the standard for others." If you treat yourself with love and respect, that is how other people will treat you. And when adversity comes, if you can hold on to that self-love and self-respect, that is what will anchor you through adversity. It will keep you true to your values. It will keep you true to what is in your heart and what is real for you. Albert Einstein said, "A mind once stretched by new thoughts can never regain its original shape." Adversity will take you out of your comfort zone. It's important to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's those moments of discomfort where we really learn and grow as human beings. We find out how strong we can be. We find out how much we have to give, not just to ourselves, but to others as well. Become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it'll take you to a whole new level of self-awareness and self-love. I also learned about the power of positive self-talk. How do you talk to yourself when you're by yourself? Do you celebrate your achievements and successes and congratulate yourself? Or do you berate yourself for not having done enough? Words are so powerful, and I'll give you an example. So someone walks up to you and says, "How are you?" And you say, "I'm okay." So someone walks up to you and says, "How are you?" And you say, "I'm great." Do you feel the difference in the energy of those two responses? High energy words, great, amazing, fantastic, magnificent, awesome, excellent. Low energy words, anxious, sad, depressed. Do you feel the difference in the energy? Because I promise you, if you infuse your internal dialogue with more of those high energy words, it will transform your life. It will change the way you feel on the inside. You'll have a higher self-esteem. It will change the lens through which you view life. And your experience day to day will naturally become lighter and more joyous. There is so much power in words. So really think about, what is your internal dialogue? And think about ways that you can infuse it with those high energy words. I also learned the power of creating affirmations. And this is one I created for myself a long time ago. I am kind, I am loving, I believe in who I am. So many people love me, and I am creating a wonderful life. And notice the word creating. It is an ongoing process. Every day, I am creating a wonderful life. Being in a constant state of happiness is not a realistic expectation, because we're all going to have days that we don't feel so good. We're all going to have days that we feel down. Adversity is going to pull the rug from under us when we're not looking and not expecting it. Having an affirmation that resonates with you, that is true to your values, helps in these situations. For me, it shifts me into a different space. It shifts me into a space of gratitude, into a space where I'm reminded I am loved. People do care about me. I am important, and I'm here for a reason. Creating an affirmation that resonates with you is something that will help you when you're going through adversity. It will help you to feel better about yourself because it will remind you that you're important and that you're loved. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Beautifully put by Helen Keller. Hope and confidence. When adversity strikes, having hope is what will help you to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Having confidence allows you to put one foot in front of the other. Optimism and faith. Faith that no matter what, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to work out. These events are all part of a greater adventure that is unfolding that you just can't see yet. These are the keys to turning adversity into opportunity. Hope, confidence, optimism, faith. And there's one more. Courage. It takes courage to be truly happy. It takes courage to leave a relationship that's no longer working. It takes courage to admit that your job is no longer challenging and maybe it's time to move on. It takes courage to make a change in your life because change is what brings uncertainty. Change is what makes us feel unsettled. But if you bring these keys, hope, confidence, optimism, faith, and courage, into your being when adversity strikes, you can live from a world and a place of self-love and possibility. And living from a place where anything is possible is the most amazing place to be. Recently, a close friend of mine died. And I had a choice. I could choose to get really angry and bitter and think, this is so unfair because she was too young to die. Or I could choose to allow my feelings to be whatever they needed to be, even though initially the intensity of the grief was huge and terrifying. But from a place of self-love, I chose to allow my feelings to come up because I knew that the intensity would start to diminish more quickly than if I tried to resist those emotions. I chose to be grateful for the time I'd had with my friend and for the beautiful memories that we created that I still carry with me every day in my heart. And I'm sure for all of you, at some point, you've all suffered through some kind of huge adversity where it's felt overwhelming, where it's felt as though, when is this going to end? This is so hard, this is so painful. But I promise you, you can use that experience to create something positive, maybe even something beautiful. Because sometimes adversity takes us to a whole new place, on a whole new adventure or a whole new path that we would never have discovered had the adversity not happened in the first place. Some of the things that I've learned through my life when adversity has come, and I've gotten through that experience, and then it's come again in another form, as is the cycle of life. Let life surprise you, because sometimes there are gifts in adversity. Always be true to yourself. Trust your instincts first and foremost. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's how you feel that's most important. Don't be afraid to follow your heart, because somehow our hearts seem to know what's best for us. Every day, be open to opportunity and let the magic unfold. And love the people who are closest to you, because they will always want the best for you. Change your thoughts and change your world. If you change your thoughts, if you infuse your internal dialogue with high energy words, it will change the way you feel on the inside, and that will positively influence the way you view the world and your experience of life. Your desire to live fearlessly and create the wonderful life that you deserve has to be greater than your fear of the unknown. And in life, everything is a choice. We have the freedom to choose. We have the freedom to choose who we invite into our lives. We have the freedom to choose what we want to do as a career. We have the freedom to listen to what's in our hearts, to trust that, to follow that, and to choose to be true to ourselves. The flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. I invite you to embrace adversity. Allow it to be your greatest teacher. Allow it to show you what you need to know and learn about yourself. Because sometimes the things that you learn about yourself are amazing. And sometimes through adversity, we end up on the most amazing path that we never would have found had the adversity not come in the first place. And sometimes this place can be the place that you've always dreamed of. Thank you.